Welcome, Brad. It's great to see you again.
Yeah,
Um,
likewise.
yeah, so maybe just for the students who are listening, what just remind them how we know each other.
Yeah, so you and I met, I think it was probably mid-year through 2023. You were an investor in a company that had engaged us to go through a sale process. You being a board member and a shareholder of that company, that's how we were introduced.
Yeah, so I thought like actually it might be. I mean, I don't want to like break any NDAs or anything, but I
Yeah.
thought it might be helpful to like kind of walk through the anatomy of the deal we did together because I'm not sure these guys kind of know how it works. So can you just kind of give a quick overview of kind of the stages that we went through and any kind of color that you feel free, to talk about?
Yeah. So where I play in the M&A market is typically as a sell side advisor. So we are hired by either founder owned businesses or investor owned businesses to market and run them through a sale process. Beginning with the pitching phase, getting signed up, we'll go ahead and kind of share our qualifications, why we think we're the best suited to represent the company during that inflection point. And then, provide valuation perspectives, positioning perspectives, who we think the right buyer universe to go out to is. And from there, we would get a formalized engagement. Generally, sell side processes run what's called a two-step process. So, whereby you're asking for indications of interest based on a limited subset of information and marketing documents that we're putting together, and then going through further diligence, a lot more detail to get a letter of intent. And then from there, you run to a closing process. So, when we kick off, we do a lot of work on the pre-marketing side. So that's before we're reaching out to any potential investors, and really understanding the ins and outs of the company. What are the, what's the secret sauce, so to speak, and articulating that in materials. So initially, we are reaching out to the market on a no names basis about the client, and that's a kind of a 1 to 2 page document highlighting, key aspects of the business, financial profile, what they do from a general perspective. But the goal of that document is to, if somebody does a Google search, they wouldn't be able to figure out who the company is. If they're interested in the opportunity, we would get under NDA. And then from there, we would share what is typically a 50 to 70 to 80 page marketing document going through, key aspects of the business that typically follows an outline of an executive summary, investment highlights, industry overview, company overview, growth prospects, and then a financial profile, which is basically just an output of a more detailed financial model that we craft and develop. From there, we'll have initial discussions with the interested parties, and then solicit that first step of the process where we're getting indications of interest. Those are typically expressed in a range rather than a specific dollar amount, with some key information about, future goals, what they intend to do with management, how they intend to fund the transaction, and then move into a more detailed diligence phase where we're typically providing a quality of earnings analysis, which is done by a third party on the front end. We're providing our detailed 5 year projection model, access to a full virtual data room, and then going to an LOI phase. And along these different, milestones, we're coordinating and communicating with the company on a day-to-day basis, outlining the offers that we get on a comparable basis, making sure that everybody's aligned in terms of the transaction goals. So once we get that LOI, we'll typically go under exclusivity with one buyer. And then we would run, closing procedures to consummate the transaction. And what that looked like for the company that we work together, CCD Health, that was a broad auction. So that included a group of over 250 buyers that we went out to. This was the full range of financial sponsors, so pure play financial groups that typically fund the transaction through a leverage buyout, through private equity-backed strategics. So these are strategic players in the market that have existing financial backing, and then pure play strategics on a standalone basis. So we whittled that process down. I think we ultimately sent out over 150 books to the market. We received somewhere in the mid-teens of indications of interest, whittled that down to, hosting management presentations where these buyers sat face to face with the management team, and ultimately had single digit letters of intent to go through. So we ultimately signed a letter of intent with Geb's Healthcare Solutions. This was a private equity backed strategic owned by Chris Capital. They are based out of India. So, dealing with the amount of jurisdictions that we had a total
I think we
of,
had six.
yeah, yeah. Um, we had six different legal counsels. We had four different accounting firms. So coordinating that diligence process across, a 10 to 12 hour time zone difference, and three completely different jurisdictions was one of the more complex deals that I've been a part of.
Yeah, so Khalil actually spoke to the class a month ago, so they're familiar with him. Just to kind of like fill in a couple of the gaps there, like from my side. So actually, before we even hired you, the story actually started like a year prior. One of the guys that I worked with, Pete Flick, was engaged by the company to kind of really get the company ready. Uh, which was twofold. One was to work on the operating margins of the business, because at that time the operating margins of the business were not what they were when you saw the business. They were actually about half. And then also like to just get the story straight. And so by the time that we were interviewing bankers, yourself included, we already wanted to have it figured out like what we're trying to sell. Um, and so that whole process happened before you even came in. And then the other piece that so like you said, we had 200 what they're called teasers to the students were sent out. If you're interested, you sign an NDA, you get this book, which is a work of art, basically. It was sent out to 150 people. And then they can send indications. And at that point, you whittle the field to kind of a group of finalists, basically, who then get to do a much deeper dive, including a virtual data room. That's also a big piece of the work product here. Um, but the other thing that I think is interesting is these guys have also been working with Nasheen, who's the public speaking coach who helped our management team at CCD get ready for those management presentations. And there's a lot on the line in those management presentations because how well they do. I mean, I don't know. Is it worth a few million dollars, $10 million? I don't know. But like, the difference between a B minus and an A plus is really very significant in those meetings. So we spent a lot of time, and I know you spent a lot of time making sure that whatever the story was, it was told well.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the data is the data is the data, but like you want to make sure that what comes across to the buyer is something that's super pretty and well articulated, and that the management team's competent, and especially in a situation like this where the management team stayed in place for 2 years, that they could have confidence that they were going to deliver the results that were baked into the projections.
Yeah, yeah, and while the deal was extremely complex from a jurisdiction standpoint and diligence standpoint, one thing that always makes our job easier is having that, core management in place. And I think that that's something that CCD did extremely well. This team had been together for years and years, and it was a really well-oiled machine by the time that we got in there, and got under the hood to really kind of figure out the operations. So, it's almost understated. Like you've got the core financials of the business, you've got the core operations of the business, but who is really the driving factor behind, really getting that spike valuation that we like to see in those processes. And that's really the intangibles of, the management team, the cohesion that they have, how well they work together, and how well they can execute on those growth prospects.
Yeah, and honestly, we'll move on from this, but just in terms of the conclusion of the deal, from the investor and the board standpoint, the outcome was tremendous. I mean, if you had told me a year prior that that's where we were going to end up, I would have like told you were smoking crack. So it was. I mean, there was a lot of things came together at the right time, and you guys were absolutely essential in everything that happened. But the business performance got to where it needed to be. The story got to where it needed to be, and the team did as well. So it was awesome. It was awesome to be a part of it with you.
Yeah, yeah. Really a team effort from, your end, the company's end, and, everybody that worked on the deal. So, really, really good outcome for everybody. And I think it was, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a top decile search fund outcome at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah,
definitely one in Latin America.
yeah, yeah. Like as I've told Khalil many times, like we were in the deal for I don't even know 8 years or something, and like for 6 of those 8 years, I would have never expected that we ended up where we did. But I'm sure glad it happened. So
Yeah. We even
so
got to
good.
use some of your proprietary. We got to use the Matlack formula for that too.
Uh, yeah, well, I won't go there because there was a big debate, but as you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, we did. So let's go to your backstory. So tell me about Hamden, Sydney, where you went to college. I'm not that familiar with it.
Yeah, yeah, kind of a roundabout way. Out of high school, I was really focused on, and I know your class is full of athletes. I was really focused on finding a good lacrosse school to go to, and didn't really focus on the academic portion. So when I graduated, I wasn't really satisfied with the recruiting process that I had initially laid out. So took an extra year, went to prep school up in New York at Trinity Pauling. And some of the alumni from there had gone to Hampton Sydney. I'd never heard of it either. But once I kind of learned a little bit more about the school, it's a small all male college, liberal arts college in Southern Virginia. Really strong culture of community, tradition. I think it's the 10th oldest college in the United States, so founded before the U.S. was. And it was really a unique place. It was half the size of my high school that I went to. So really a different shift. But what I knew I wanted was a better academic school and a better academic situation, given lacrosse wasn't going to be a long-term career for me. So you know, um, found that school through the recruiting process. They had a good D3 Division 3 lacrosse team, and a really good alumni program as well as or alumni network, and then a really good economics program. So I knew I wanted to do finance pretty early on. And really honed in on Hampton Sydney. And I think one of the things that made it unique was I got a call out of the blue from the college president, Dr. Chris Howard. Really tremendous guy. But he just called me up to talk shop and asked me where my head was in terms of my recruiting process. Reiterated the fact that they really wanted me to go there. So that was really unique and cool. Just getting a call from that type of caliber individual.
It's pretty wild when your president's calling up athletes, recruits, to like try and convince them to come.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was used to the recruiting call. So at the end of the call, I, just said, "Hey, coach, really appreciate the call." And he said, I promise you, if you come here, you can call me coach." So it was a good one. But yeah, he's at Arizona State now, and just a really tremendous individual.
So what did you learn in lacrosse that applies to your business have applied to your business life?
Um, I think I'm a big Georgia fan, Bulldog fan. So one of the mottos there is finish the drill. I always carried that over to the cross. And that's not only for the individual aspect, but also the team aspect, getting to a common goal, no matter where the path takes you or the unexpected turns that you hit in the road. I'd say that was the big one. Being adaptable to different situations certainly, helps. While I mentioned the M&A process is pretty standard, going through that, you really don't understand or really don't know where you're going to go through the deal, and you've got to become adaptable to get to the common goal for all the shareholders.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've been through, I couldn't even tell you how many deals, both on the buy side and the sell side, and there's always a point where it's complete chaos. And
Yep,
and it doesn't look like
inevitably.
it doesn't look, it looks very bad that it's gonna even like happen. And you gotta
Yeah,
figure out a way through it. Yeah, for
yep,
sure.
yeah.
It's like I don't think there's been any deal that was not painful at some point, like really painful. Um, so how did so you knew you wanted to go into finance. How did you find Coker and what was the attraction there?
So Coker spun out of a healthcare consulting group. So it was founded in '09 by two partners. A third one was added shortly thereafter. I found it through a good buddy of mine that I played lacrosse with at Hampton Sydney. And he was a fraternity brother, a great friend. So found it through him. It was just starting out when I'd interned there. So I was junior hire number two when I came on a team of about five or six. So really kind of grew it from the ground up. Obviously Hampton Sydney certainly not a Wall Street target school. So options were limited from that perspective, but a really good culture with a lot of exposure at an early age in my career. And I think that's one of the things that really set me up for longevity in this career is just getting that exposure to the C-suite that early on. That and not only externally but also internally, being tasked with handling financial models and CIM build outs and industry analysis early on that typically in the bulge brackets, those analysts aren't really getting that exposure that early on. Um, so I think just a little more history on them. We grew that firm by 2018. We were about 25 to 30 individuals. The partners were approached by Fifth Third Bank and ultimately acquired the business. So I stuck around there up until about 2 months ago.
So yeah, before we get to the move, so what exactly was the sweet spot of what you guys were doing at Coker?
Yeah, the foundation of the platform was really started entrepreneur owned businesses in the middle market, and specifically within healthcare. The partners, through their careers, realized that healthcare is such a unique ecosystem that a generalist model really doesn't work all that well. So really, that specialized experience within a couple niches within healthcare is what really where we got our traction in the mid 2010s.
So define mid-market for me in terms of what you guys
Yeah.
what you were doing.
Yeah, and I mean in terms of enterprise value, it's about 50 million to anywhere north of 750 million. So kind of that lower middle market.
And so were you doing M&A? Were you doing capital raising? What were you guys, what kinds of things were you doing?
Yeah, we would do capital raises, but it had to be the right situation. Where our bread and butter was is certainly sell side M&A.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and so so you were there over 10 years.
Yeah.
And so what was what were the kind of steps of your evolution? I mean, do you when you look back over those 10 years, what kinds of things were you doing by the end that you weren't able to do at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot. I mean, deal execution all throughout your junior years. So that's analyst, associate, VP years. You're really focusing on the execution of the deals. Throughout, it being in a newer firm, we didn't have any formalized kind of recruiting training processes, but over time we certainly developed those. So, when I was an associate, I led the internship recruiting and internship program for us. A couple years after that, we stepped up and I was managing all the analysts as a senior associate and VP. So, the mentorship aspect was certainly something that developed over time and an area that I enjoyed a lot. I maintained that through Fifth Third as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, in terms of kind of what I was able to do later on is really kind of managing the strategy and process of the deal, rather than just kind of going through the motions, creating the decks, and you're more so formulating the actual themes of how we want to position the company, how we should look at different financial pro formas, and really training up the analysts and the associates to be able to put that into execution.
Yeah, I would assume too, like all of a sudden, as you move through it, like you're actually having the critical conversation with buyers, trying to tell them why they should pay more, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Certainly a lot more buyer interaction. Younger in or at least in my years, I was doing a lot of the client interaction. So hosting diligence calls on operations, commercial, financial growth, particularly with the client. And then as you move up, you're more so doing those buyer calls and leading the diligence on that end.
Yeah. So you recently made a switch. Why and where did you go?
Yeah, so recently joined Northbourne Partners. One of the original founders of Coker went over to the buy side, started a behavioral health company with a private equity firm. They deployed 350 million of capital into those companies, and he joined Northbourne a couple months before I did, to build out an Atlanta office, which is where I'm based. And he made an outbound and asked if I'd be willing to join and wanting to join. Kind of this new opportunity to go back to a boutique environment. Really kind of it's very similar to where Coker was right before the acquisition, in a really entrepreneurial environment, a lot of good culture, um, and a great team doing kind of the same thing. But Northbourne is a newer firm founded in 2001, or sorry, 2021. By a group of individuals, more generalist in nature, but we do have a number of sub verticals that are kind of our core competencies, healthcare being one of the major ones.
Um, and so I'm sorry. So it is you're still doing M&A transactions and advisory work.
Yep, yep, exactly the same thing. So, founder-owned businesses in the middle market, and still focused on the healthcare sector.
Got it. Cool. Well, I like to kind of end up with a few general questions. So, kind of so far, like what aspect of your career are you most proud of? I mean, what kind of sticks out as like things you think about?
Yeah, I think it's two main things. One is the work that we do for the clients. So getting to a successful outcome, and then seeing how those companies flourish after the fact with their new ownership groups. In many cases, these are transformational life events for entrepreneurs. So you think about the major milestones in their life. Starting a company is one, but then monetizing that and setting up their future generations financially, is a huge goal that they obviously contemplated in the beginning. So I'd say that's certainly one, is the work that we do for the clients and getting to a successful outcome. The second one would be more internally related and kind of the development and career growth that I'm able to foster within our existing teams. So being a mentor, being a somebody that your junior resources can count on to be an advocate for. Investment banking is notoriously um, just notorious for long hours and a lot of late nights in the office. So, having somebody that's an ally for you internally to make sure that, you're getting the right experience, the right exposure without being, pushed to the limits is certainly something that I prided myself on and helping them through the hard times.
So what's a mistake you made that you would advise the students not to make?
Um, yeah, I mean, one that comes to top of mind is really the connections that you make early on in the career, to really foster those. So, I mean, thinking back to all the private equity firms that I've had interaction with through the number of processes that we've run, not maintaining those relationships. I as you progress through your career, you really see how many kind of fingers are out there. They go from private equity to the buy to a portfolio company, and then they're starting their own companies. So I think just maintaining those relationships, investment banking as a whole is not just transactional. It is very interpersonal with the people that you meet, the experience that you share, and where everybody ends up.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely preaching to the choir. I mean, we're trying to teach that from day one, honestly. Even as these guys are ramping up to look for a job. Like that, you should never lose track of somebody who you care about, because you never know where they're going to turn up and where they could be helpful, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was the most fun you had at work? What was your best day ever?
Um, I mean, anytime you're closing a deal is a great day. That's the most fun is getting to that finish line. It's really 6 to 12 months of hard grinding work. So when you see that pay off for both your client and the firm, that's always a great day. We've had a lot of fun as a firm over the years, and I think, getting together outside of the office is also up there. Doing the firm offsites, kind of unwinding for a couple days is also a great time.
Cool. Uh, Joe, do you have any questions? Joe's an aspiring banker, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we had never represented a international business, so I won't say that was it. Where I think our expertise came in was, understanding the buyer universe. They had a unique niche within radiology scheduling, and we had previously sold a number of radiology practices in the marketplace, so we knew the sector and how critical the need was that CCD was filling. Um, I think that's Tom. You probably have a better answer on this on why you chose us, but I would say sector expertise was certainly one of them.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Joe, it's actually a really good question. So I'll kind of reveal at least my thinking on our side. Number one, like we could have hired a banker who was more of a generalist on, call centers or something else, but we really wanted to be positioned as more of a healthcare company. We felt like the multiple would be better there. And so Coker's experience with like really kind of right on point for our customers was very helpful. So that was one thing. Number two is like banks are kind of like it's kind of like Goldilocks, right? Like you don't want a bank that is so small that they're not experienced at your size company, but you also don't want a bank that's so big that they're not going to give a shit about you, right? And so you're always trying to find like exactly the right fit. And we felt like Coker probably was like a little upstream from us, but not so far upstream that we weren't going to get good service. And so that they were like a little above, like maybe like where we should be, but we felt like that was okay because the third thing is like the people. It's always the people. It's like, do we believe looking into these guys' eyes that they're actually going to do what they say? And then probably the last thing is that, we've done a lot of work on obviously like what we thought our business was worth. And so like, when somebody comes in, you can tell. whether they've done the work and whether they're thinking kind of the same way you are about what the actual value is and like what the drivers of that value are. And so they had done a lot of work and were very, very intelligent in terms of how they're thinking through that in ways that, paralleled what we had. So it's kind of a combination of all those things. I mean, in the final analysis, like it just like in everything, it just comes down to the people and do you like believe what they're saying, and do you want to work with them? And like we felt like these were like really good guys, and everything else was right, but also we just felt like there was a good, kind of chemistry fit. That check out with you, Brad?
Yeah, it's great to hear from the other side. You don't really get that candid feedback post deal, so yeah, it's great
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah, no, and like I said, you guys did a great job. All right, I'll finish it up with a couple stupid questions that we always ask our guests. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, so I've got two that come to mind. Probably one of my favorites is Pulp Fiction. There's a quote in that movie that was misread on screen, but they kept it in the movie when they're talking about the Royale with cheese. Check out the big brain on Brad. But that wasn't the guy's name in the movie, so that one stuck. I've had that quoted to me a couple times during my work career, but a movie that comes on anytime and I can watch it 100 times over. I'm a big Keanu Reeves fan, so The Replacements is also another favorite.
Nice. I think Pulp Fiction might be the only repeat we've had all semester. I think someone else had mentioned it as well. It's definitely high on my list. So,
Yeah. Yep.
so last question is, when the students all watch this back, what's one word you'd like to leave with them that they should focus on as they're, trying to build their business career in the next year or two?
Um, it's two words. Intellectual curiosity. Always keeping an open mind. Always um, wanting to learn more. Asking the questions that others are afraid to ask. That's something that has helped me along the way. I think when you're coming out of college, you don't necessarily know. Um, what you want to do. You may think you have an idea, but if you're not asking yourself the tough questions, if you're not trying to learn more about different industries or different sectors of the market, you're really kind of just going with the flow and following the river. Um, so I would say, keep an open mind to other opportunities that come your way.
Yeah, definitely. Cool, man. Well, this is great. I appreciate all your time, and hope we have a chance to work together sometime
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, it was great seeing you, Tom.
All right.
Thanks, you.